So nice to have you here online. You might be joining from anywhere in the world. I'm currently in London, in very hot London, having, had a nice day at TATE Modern where I work. And Eli is with us today, joining from Siena in Italy, as Michael says. How are you doing, Eli?
Good, good. It's great to be here. Thank you, Jess, and thank you, Michael, for having me and for chatting with me. I'm really excited.
Yeah, thanks so much, Michael and Josie as well. Belfast Photo Festival is until 31st of June, so if you're in town, you should go and see it. So I was one of the judges. I was really lucky to be one of the judges on the open submission this year, and I really enjoy my work doing that. I think there's a few judges, but for us, we don't really speak to each other. But what came across unanimously this year was Eli Durst's work, and how much it caught our eye. Just looking at the kind of small selection from a very, very huge amount of submissions this year. Congrats, Eli. I'm really excited to kind of dig into your practice a bit more. But to say a bit about Eli, Eli Durst is a photographer based in Austin, Texas, and he has been teaching at the University of Texas College of Fine Arts since 2018. And Eli received an MFA in photography from Yale School of Art. Eli's been a recipient of a huge number of awards. I won't go into them all now, but most recently was awarded a 2025 Guggenheim Fellowship. And Eli has published two books, The Community with Morel Books in 2020 and The Four Pillars by Loose Joints in 2022. Eli's done a huge amount of editorial work and in magazines and newspapers. But the series we're going to be looking at today are really special and focus more on I guess you're going to explain shortly, Eli, but childhood and teenagehood and living in America. The photographs you're going to show us feel to me really carefully composed in beautiful stillness in black and white. Kids of different ages kind of stare into the camera in your photographs and they dip somewhere between newfound confidence and this really also painful teenage awkwardness, which I'm sure you can all relate to. Strange rituals happen in small American towns, and the gender binary seems alive and kicking in the boys in manly suits and the girls in glittering costumes, all captured in the flash of white light from Eli's camera. So Eli, do you want to maybe take us through, just say a little bit about your work and take us through some images, and then we can kind of, get talking.
Yeah, thank you, Jess. Maybe I'll say a few words and then just like scroll through a slide deck. So over the last 4 years, I've been photographing young people, mostly in suburban Texas, almost exclusively. Been photographing different group activities, including like school plays, performances, dance recitals and competitions, Bible study, military training, which we call ROTC, which is, it's not real military. It's sort of like a kind of a pseudo sort of embodiment of it. And cotillion, which I think we'll talk about. Cotillion, for those of you who don't know, is this very kind of old school Southern tradition where it's like you go and you learn manners and etiquette, which fork to use, how to dance, how to do the foxtrot and the tango. So it's this sort of, learning social skills, but through this like very kind of traditional sort of lens or angle. So that's literally what I'm photographing from a kind of, symbolic or metaphoric point of view. I'm interested in how social forces shape young people, right? How you take the raw chaos of this human being, right, and you mold it into some kind of, member of a tribe or a citizen, right? Some sort of small part of a larger whole. And what's gained from that, but also what's lost, like what parts of ourselves we give up to be part of something larger, and just how a society reproduces itself, right? How these, gender roles, ideas about race, class, privilege, how all of these things get reproduced and passed down, absorbed, and then actually performed again by the next generation, right? It's like how these invisible forces, affect our lives. So here, like, should I share my screen?
Yeah, sure. I should have said at the beginning as well, there's a Q&A box if, at the bottom if anyone wants to ask, and we can talk through them at the end. But yeah, go for it, Eli.
So yeah, I'll just scroll through, Jess, and maybe you can ask questions, or if you want to stop on something, just let me know. This is Irish dance.
Yeah, I was just about
This is the
to
Belfast
talk on this
Festival.
one. Yeah. So what we're looking at, is this all from one series, or are you?
Yeah, so
Um,
this is all from my kind of current series. It's called The Children's Melody, and I'm working with a publisher to publish this next year. But they're all photographs from sort of disparate groups, some of these ones that I mentioned. Um, but the idea is to try to put them together into a sequence, try to unite them with a specific style, try to make them feel like they could really coexist, right? So you stop thinking about maybe the differences of these different activities and start thinking about some of the commonalities, like what unites them, what connects them. Um, what are the social forces here that are, shaping people? The sense of belonging, right? Belonging to a group, belonging to something larger than yourself. Um, and some of the sort of maybe the ideologies um, of suburban America, both some of which are, you know, I think really compelling and some of which are probably pretty toxic.
yeah, as a non-American, yeah, when your photographs to me look very familiar, as if I've kind of my perception of America as a country is filtered down through, like, I guess, like films or TV shows. So seeing these, they feel almost like they could have been from a different decade as well, and this kind of timelessness. Like there's not nothing in them what we're looking at that would tie them to the now. And I think
Yeah.
it's interesting when you say, yeah, there've been, these events, these perceptions of class and gender have been passed down, and kind of repackaged every time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, part of it I think is just the type of space I'm drawn to, like these very utilitarian, very functional spaces, right? They're sort of devoid of some of these markers of like the contemporary world. Um, but part of it is also, I mean, I hope there's a sense of defamiliarization, right? That like you look at these and you don't really know um, when they're from or where they are, or what's going on. Like hopefully that temporal ambiguity sort of hopefully works with the sense of like that strangeness or not knowing, um or these things like the cheerleader, right? Like cheerleaders I feel like are so kind of quintessentially American and also like pretty stable, right? It's like it doesn't look that much different. It's a connector, as you said. It's like it connects the present day to the past in this way, right?
Right. Yeah, definitely. And how are you approaching your subjects here? So are you going to different schools, or yeah, centers, and then how are you talking to the young people that you're photographing?
Yeah, so I mean, the logistical work is a huge part of my practice. I mean, that's just the time it takes. So I spend a lot of time researching. I spend a lot of time reaching out to people. These photographs, this is from a school. This is from the elementary school that I attended, actually. So I like went back to the school where I went from, like when I was like 5 to when I was 12. So I had a sort of a connection there. But with a lot of these spaces, I don't know them. I just find a contact, and often, I mean, we talked last time about how to put people at ease, like when you're photographing, right? How to get moments that feel authentic or natural. A lot of times, the first time I meet or go to a group, I don't bring my camera. I don't photograph at all. I just spend time with them. If it's a Bible study, I'll just stay for one session. It's a play, I'll just stay for one rehearsal. Just so people feel more comfortable with me, right? I'll usually present my work or explain what I'm doing. I want people to feel like they understand what I'm doing. And also, if there are people who don't want to be photographed, they tell me, and I respect that. And, you know, I don't really want to be photographing people who don't want to be photographed. I don't want to make anyone uncomfortable with my work. That's not what I'm trying to do. So I think that also helps that it's working with people, who hopefully, want to be photographed.
Yeah,
But it's
for
a
sure. How did they react after you've told them about your practice? And yeah, I think I'd imagine that they feel kind of proud, maybe, that their school or themselves are being, kind of looked at in your photographs, or do they
yeah.
not really care because they have an iPhone and they know what?
Yeah. I hope so. I hope so. I mean, some of these, like, I also do editorial stories, right? So, like, some of these ones from this school play, I also wrote a piece for the New York Times, an opinion piece about how do we teach children about, the history of America, right? And whitewashed or watered down. And so I think when there's like an editorial angle, they're really excited because it's like some level of, notoriety. But so other times they don't care. They don't care at all. They're just like, this is some artist taking these pictures. But I think they're generally pretty surprised when I show them the pictures. They're surprised by how they look because I use strobes, right? So like I have a radio signal on my camera. Then when I take the picture, it triggers these lights so I can have them off camera. So that's what creates something like this really dramatic light. Often I'll like backlight the subjects, right? So you'll see some of those. So I think they're usually when I show them the images, they're quite surprised because it looks very different from how you would see them in the real space, like with whatever incandescent or fluorescent light, right? So there is, I think, an element of remove from the way the pictures look, from the actual experience. But yeah, I'd say usually they're pretty excited. Occasionally there are people who don't want to be photographed, which is completely fine. But
No, it sounds like, yeah, you have a really respectful approach, and yeah, it looks like what I really admire about these works is how like at ease everyone feels, and they're really like in their own world doing something. And I think that is a skill of a photographer, isn't it, to help the people you're photographing feel at ease. I think the ones in the crowds like this are so beautifully composed. I wonder, do you take how many like times are you clicking the shutter basically for a scene like this?
yeah, I mean, it totally depends. For this one, I think I only took a few because after, I had these flashes, right? So I actually had 3 flashes set up because this was a huge space. And so after I took this picture, actually someone came up to me and said, you have to stop because there could be people who are like epileptic or have light sensitivity. So I was like, all right. Because I was sort of like flashing the entire room. So this one I only took a couple and then stopped, but often it's more. I mean, one thing that helps with that sense of being at ease or like absorption is that often the people are engaged in some kind of activity, right? So I'll just go backwards now. You know what I mean? So this is like an ROTC drill, essentially, right? This is an Irish dance competition, or it's a practice, really. So they're absorbed in something, right? There's something they're doing. Often it's something strenuous or, that requires attention, right? Getting ready for a play. This one's more like a portrait, right? This is a rehearsal. So I think that really helps because it's like, I'm not walking up to people and I'm like, hey, let me take your portrait, for the most part. Or there's not a sense of like, I feel like when people walk up, it's like you say like, oh, be natural, or just like, oh, just like think about something. People become so uncomfortable because it's like
Yeah,
they don't know what they're supposed to do. And I found that with these, like I think the pictures are better when it's like not that when they're just doing something else, when they just know what they're doing, right? And I can just sort of observe and I can just sort of it's not that I'm invisible and they all know I'm there. I have these lights. I mean, I have no illusions about these being some sort of like faithful fly on the wall objective reality by any means. Um, they're performing for me too, right? There's a photographer here with lights. Um, there's absolutely a performance happening. That's altered by me being there. But there was a performance already happening.
yeah, yeah. That's so interesting. Speaking of performances, do you sense a difference between like the ages of the kids or teenagers that you're photographing? Like, um, yeah, how is that different depending on the age?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and these pictures are all about performance, right? They're about how young people learn, absorb, inherit, and then embody and perform, right? How, right, they learn these things and then make them real through their performance, right? And like the idea of gender roles, like learning gender roles, like what a man does and what a woman's supposed to do, how she's supposed to act, all of these things, right? And how they embody them, physically. Um,
Mm,
I would say the younger they are, the less control you have. So some of these larger group scenes, like this one, for instance. So this is like a rehearsal for a play. So they're supposed to all be doing this like choreography and singing, and it's just pure chaos, right? I mean, it's like 40, 50 8-year-olds. I mean, you have no control. Like it's like they don't care at all about you, about what you're doing. So it's like you have to sort of give up that control. And the performance is, it seems like it's more inward in a way. Like it's not, they're not really taking much into account versus when you get older and the cotillion, and it feels much more, they're much more aware, right? And they're aware like how they're supposed to be, how they're supposed to behave, how they're supposed to look. So it becomes more controlled. And I think, throughout the series, hopefully what you see is that process, right? That process of like when you're young and chaotic and you're still, you sort of haven't really been kind of molded, or I think cynically the idea is like you haven't really been programmed, right? You're just sort of this like wild thing. And there's something very sweet and I think very compelling about that.
Do you I think we talked a little bit before about, the social role of photography and this kind of, I guess, the fact that you're taking these photographs maybe makes them more introspective and think about their own performances and things. Yeah, are you in a way like poking fun, or maybe, or just trying to simply represent, these rituals and kind of deeply entrenched cultural moments that happen in these people's lives?
Yeah, I mean, I think I am interested in social forces, and when I was an undergrad, when I was in university, I studied American studies, which was like a mix of literature, history, race studies, gender studies, queer studies, right? And that was always the lens through which I approach photography. It was always about an interest in the world. It wasn't born out of like formal concerns. I mean, obviously that comes later because you have to have those if you are an artist, like that's the tool you're using. But certainly my work has always been born out of an interest in the world. And I think part of what I like doing is like giving myself sort of an impossible task, right? A photograph, all it does is describe the surface of the world. That's all a photograph does, right? But how do you talk about something like identity, spirituality, or faith, conformity, shame? Like, how do you make pictures about these things, right? These things that are invisible. So it's kind of impossible, right? It's sort of like I'm guaranteed to fail. But I think in that pursuit, it's interesting. I learned something, and it's like, I think I fail at that, but I hopefully achieve something else. So yeah, I mean, that to me, it's like photography is just an incredible tool for looking at the world.
Yeah, for sure. I wonder if we could flick to the image of there are girls in like glitzy costumes and then one person who's in
Yeah,
a suit. Um,
yeah,
yeah, just thank you. Yeah, what you're talking, we're talking about these kind of gatherings or activities that young people have to do that are very, as we were saying, entrenched in gender roles. Which I think, to be fair, could be criticized. It's yeah, kind of, you could take a different kind of stance on this, but given the kind of political situation in both in America and the UK, and in gender in particular, like, how are you? Yeah, have you sensed a change over the last few years, or are kids kind of, are they being open to it? I think you told me a really nice anecdote about this person in the middle here.
yeah. So yeah, I'll start just with the image and then sort of expand. But so
Yeah,
this person in the middle, so this is an Irish dance competition. And it's like they have these extremely gendered, I mean, it's sort of like a pageant mixed with an athletic competition. And this person in the middle is someone who had performed in the women's costume, and then they decided like they didn't want to and they wanted to perform. They felt restricted by that outfit, that costume, and so they were performing in the man's costume. And I thought that was so brave, you know what I mean? And this extremely gendered construct to be like to step outside of that. But I also thought there was something kind of sad in the sense that it's like it's a binary, right? Like you can step outside, but then you have to be a man, And it's like there wasn't actually, it's like you stepped out of one trap kind of into another, right? Like it's they were accepting enough to allow that, but there's also, you can't really imagine, there was no imagining some sort of other version, right? It was like, okay, well, you can be the woman or the man, right? It's like they were stuck in this binary. So I don't know. I thought that was very moving. I was very moved by this person and the courage, and but also sort of just disappointed by society overall in that way. Um, for like that the failure of imagination, right? And I think obviously things in the States right now are really dire and bleak, and you have people in government trying to tell you like how you can be, how you can act, right? What you can learn, what you can teach. And I think that's horrible. I mean, although I think for the most part people self-police, right? Like we police ourselves, right? And we police others because we sort of absorb these ideas and ideologies, right? And then we sort of punish ourselves, right? We restrict ourselves to certain paths and identities in that way.
Yeah, yeah, I hear in your response, like, yeah, this kind of acknowledgement for like gender non-conforming people and how tough it is at the moment. But I guess, yeah, there's, I suppose, also that sense of community that you're like encapsulating in your photographs, and yeah, this kind of like memory making part of what I find so strange about childhood. And I was thinking a lot when I was looking at your photos about this, is it's a universal thing that happens to all of us, and yet you can never get it back because, but well, unless someone is very young on this call. But yeah, it's a funny like things that I thought about as a kid, like if I was scared of something, or if I yeah, had a bad memory, not nothing traumatic, but that scares me more than an adult today, if that makes sense. So because there's something about being really vulnerable and like yeah, I guess so impressionistic when you're a child. I wonder if it's not too personal, like does your work like make you think about your own childhood and kind of I guess is childhood the right word to use? It feels a bit like twee, but what I mean is, yeah, this
Yeah, no, I
kind
think
of
so, right?
formation of identity.
Yeah. I mean, some of these photos, like this one, I mean, this is the school I went to. This is like I was on these risers. I was performing in this play, in
But
first
yeah.
grade or second grade. So for that, I mean, being there, it was like actually, it was super trippy. Like it felt so bizarre. I mean, some of my teachers were still there, which was incredible. I think only one of them really that I had, but um, absolutely. And I think that, you know, for me, looking back on it, it's like when I was photographing, it's like, oh, you guys, it's like being a kid is so fun. Like it's like you don't have to worry about anything. It's like the time of your lives. But then I think about like memories I have from when I was young, and it's like there was so much anxiety, at least I had, right? About who am I gonna be? Am I a good person? Am I a bad person? Am I abnormal? Am I gonna be successful? It's like I have so much anxiety, right? And photographing them also kind of triggered me in those ways. And I think that,
Mm.
we always have sort of this rosy, these rose-colored glasses. We romanticize it and don't realize like how much these kids are actually dealing with and going through, and feeling and experiencing. Um, and how much is sort of like the bullshit that we then project onto them, you know what I mean? Which is, pretty sad. Um,
Yeah,
but
definitely.
sorry, keep going, Jess.
No, go on. No, no, please.
I just think it's like on one hand, they're these little kids, and on the other hand, it's like you're an adult. You know what I mean? Like you're dealing with grown-up stuff and trying to take them seriously. When photographing them, it's like trying to take their concerns and their ideas and their feelings, seriously, right? Not sort of just like, oh, you're just, a little kid or something.
Yeah, definitely. Like, you're imbuing them with a sense of like humanity, aren't you? And yeah, something that I think we see so many images of like kids nowadays from all over the world that can be really, really triggering and horrible. And then when we see photos like yours, I just get this urge, yeah, to like of protection and like this desire to shield them away from this thing we call culture, but that has good and bad things in it. As we were saying, sense of community, but also kind of hostile and yeah, sad binaries that we were talking about. Um, you mentioned to me Oh, sorry, do you want to respond to that? Oh, I have another question.
Oh, sorry. Are there questions?
Oh no, I was going to ask. Sorry, I'm yet to ask the question, but I was actually we've got some questions in the chat. I'll ask my final one rather selfishly, and then come to these. But one thing I wanted to kind of tell the audience about was your work with Joel Meyerowitz, who is an incredible American photographer, and also this kind of legacy of photographers working with themes of childhood. I mentioned to you Steve McQueen, who is a really amazing artist, a British artist who did the Year 3 project at TATE Britain, where he photographed every single school in London, the Year 3 classes in that, because he was interested in that age. Sorry for those who don't know Year 3, I think that's like 7, maybe 11. The point of which, like, your identity, your gender, you're suddenly aware of race, and you're suddenly aware of all the things in the world that make a person a human. Eli, do you kind of look at other photographers and artists to get inspiration, or is it all just from you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say more of it comes from outside of photography than anything. I mean, Year 3 is amazing. The 7 Up series, the film, the English films. I mean, to me, that's one of the greatest pieces of art ever made. I mean, it's beyond just being one of the greatest films. Like, it's just an absolutely incredible piece of art. And I also think of, like, Boyhood by Richard Linklater, who's another Austinite, another absolutely incredible work about young people. And so, like, I think I'm really influenced by film, by books, certainly by photography. I mean, working with Joel Meyerowitz was incredible, and I spent 3 years working for him as an assistant, doing scanning, printing, inventory, and I learned a lot from him. I think I learned a lot from him just about how to be an artist, like what it looks like to have an art practice, right? And I just finished undergrad, and it was like, what does it even mean to try to be an artist, a professional artist? And the professionalism, the seriousness, the rigor, right, that like goes into all of that. But no, absolutely. I mean, I am hugely influenced by lots of work constantly. So yeah.
There's some deep questions in the chat, but just what you were talking about, I'll ask. I mean, this could be deep. Somebody asks, from what you were just speaking about on your kind of like journey, and like what you're exposed to when you were kind of forming your practice as a photographer. Somebody asks, "Hello, I love your work. As a newcomer photographer, how is the process of planning an exhibition for you versus making a book? Any tips for either cases based on your experience?"
Yeah, that's a great question. It's challenging. I mean, that's a big question. I mean, I think when I make work, I mean, for me, I fell in love with photography through books, like going to the art library and looking at books. And it's like that for me. Like, when I'm making a project, I am sort of thinking about a book. I'm thinking about the book form and just the sheer number of images and the interplay of those images. So, I mean, that to me is kind of always like the end goal of a project. I think with exhibitions, I think it's just important to know, not that this is like novel advice, but it's just that it's never going to be the same as a book, right? And like, you shouldn't try to make it the same as a book, like you should embrace the differences of an exhibition. When I do an exhibition, I try to do just something different. Like, all right, I'm not going to have 60 pictures like a book. I'm going to have 11. So like, there are so many different versions of that exhibition, right? There of 11 images, right? So I think about like, what's something new, what's something different, what's a selection of pictures, what can I accomplish in this venue? And then if I have another exhibition in a different space down the road, it's like, I'd like to do something different, right? And have a different selection of images. So I think about it as just like the exhibition is like an opportunity really to do something different. It doesn't need to be a summation, or a culmination of the whole work. I don't know if that was helpful, but
I Having not been an artist at all, but I thought, that really spoke to that question. So thanks for asking it. And yeah, it just, as well, with my curator hat on, I guess exhibitions are more like durational. They're like a thing you go to with people, whereas a book is like, I mean, just saying the obvious, but it's kind of more static and something you can dip back into, and it unravels itself over time as you experience a photo book. But yeah, exhibitions, they're so like set in place as well, depending on the institution or gallery as well. So they're very different, and you know, I'm biased, but I do like exhibitions more. We have a question. This is it's quite long, but I know what I think I know what this person's saying. They ask, do you, Eli, ever encounter issues with certain people or institutions who give you permission to photograph at first, but realize afterwards that your images are being used to criticize certain status quos, especially how you sequence your images, I guess, as you're saying from your work on books as well, how they're paired together, the criticisms become more apparent. And has anyone ever noticed this and like rescinded their participation? Yeah, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, Jeffrey. I think I just try to be really open and transparent about what I'm doing and what I'm interested in. And a lot of times, like, some of these images have appeared in the New York Times, right, or other venues. And so it's hard to, I'm not interested in trying to like mislead or disguise. And I think hopefully the images are open-ended enough that it's like you perceive what you perceive, right? And it's like it might appear as a criticism to some, and maybe not to others, But I think what I love about photography, at least what I love about photographing in the world, just like real people outside of like my own imaginations, is like when I go shoot, I have all these ideas, right? Like photographing cotillion. I have all these ideas about, oh, this is about these like regressive gender roles. This is like so like fascist. And then I get there and I see it, and it's just like young people who like want to be in a space together, or like a little boy who wants to learn how to waltz, or like, a young girl who like wants to be more confident. And it's like my own preconceptions collide with reality and real people who are much more complex than I could have ever imagined, right? So that's what I love about making pictures in the world, is like they can be smarter than I am. They can mean things that I didn't know or don't know. And I like that idea that the images challenge my own ideas, what I was thinking, and hopefully become a lot more complex versus some just like sort of screed about conformity or something.
And has anyone ever withdrawn their participation?
Um,
You don't have to
No,
say.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Not that, no, but people have spoken to me when I'm taking pictures, like, oh, please don't take pictures of me, or not signed waivers and things like that. And then I just don't photograph them. One person told me that his political opponents could use images against him, and I didn't know what that meant. And I was like, okay, man, I'm not even gonna go there, but like, I'm not gonna photograph you. So, I mean, I try to just really respect that. That idea.
Yeah, hopefully not on a hit list somewhere. That'd be bad. Um, I guess on that, we keep talking about cotillion, and you very helpfully explained what that was. Sorry, this isn't a question from the chat, but just again, another selfish one. What like could you outline it a bit more for us, and how popular is it in the States, and what it actually looks like, and where it's come from, and maybe where it's going? Do you know, like from just
For
kind of
cotillion?
cotillion?
Yeah. So I mean, cotillion is something that's like obviously it's existed for a long time. It was like a big and sort of like Southern like debutante culture. You have like a coming out as a young woman. It's like high society. You wear like white gloves. Um, Obviously, like its popularity seems to have like faded. And when I originally started photographing cotillion, I sort of thought it would be this like moribund thing that like no one really cares about. But it's actually extremely popular now. And I think it's because of like the pandemic and the like transition to life online, that a lot of parents feel like their kids don't like have certain social skills or don't interact with people or just spend all their time playing video games, and they want them to like learn interpersonal skills and like how to like make eye contact and how to make a presentation. So it was actually like when I was photographing there, they said there was a wait list like to get into the cotillion that I was photographing. So I was quite surprised by that. But it's definitely become less formal, and that sort of like debutante culture has faded in many ways. But there's also like black cotillion. Like black cotillion is a big thing in certain African American communities. So it definitely still exists.
Yeah, I know so little about this ritual that happens, but I guess there's so many versions of like coming of age, or like, you know, in all different religions and all different places in the world, that it's interesting you're capturing, you know, one version of that, but someone from another culture, like a quinceañera, I don't know if that's how you say it, but
Quinceañera,
yeah, like, yeah, that for some reason us as humans are, you know, we're always trying to mark this change
yeah.
in our bodies.
Absolutely. These rituals, these rites of passage. I mean, I've always been interested in the idea of like rituals, contemporary iterations of rituals, right? How we make sense of the world, um, how we have to have these performances to like understand things or mark time or mark transitions, right?
Um, have you noticed, Manu asks, have you noticed particular dynamics of popularity or social hierarchy emerge within these groups? I'm personally thinking of Mean Girls here because I did experience that at school. And if so, how do these dynamics shape or reveal themselves in your images?
That's a good question. I think you do see it a little bit. I mean, it really depends. Like you don't see it in ROTC military training. Like that is sort of wiped out. You certainly see like the cliques in certain groups, which, is painful. I mean, adolescence is painful. Like it was painful to go through it, and it's painful to look at. You see a little bit of it. I mean, it's, awkwardness and adolescence and sort of that shyness versus that confidence. Like I think you see that in some of the pictures. And here, let me show one really quickly that's in this presentation. Um, can you see that, Jess? Is that up on the screen?
I can, yes, thank you.
So, I think, let's see where this image actually is. It might be the other way. So, okay, here we go. So this is an image from Cotillion, and like these are, you basically, for most of the things, you have to pair off into couples, and usually they're like, heterosexual couples. And I just loved, it's like how like, first of all, the transition of adolescence, like the size difference between the young women, it's like such a pronounced difference, but also just like the sort of confidence of the boy on the left, right? Puffing his chest out, looking up, and the sort of shy, reserved quality of the boy to the right. He's much smaller, and sort of has his hands clasped. He's sort of protecting himself in this way. And so I think you see some of those dynamics. At least that's why I like this picture, because I feel like you see some of those dynamics. But peer pressure, I mean, popularity, I mean, all those things are, social forces that affect the decisions we make and how we act and how we dress and how we behave.
Do you ever, just out of interest, like, yeah, is it like, do you know these kids would you say something if, I don't know, someone was being a bit shy, or, do you try and help them along, or is it a very kind of
Yeah.
removed?
Yeah. I mean, I try to obviously like be nice or, compliment them or something, but they also might not really care what I think, it's like I'm just some random adult, and it's like they probably care much more about their peers than some rando. But
Oh no, I bet they think you're really cool every time you go.
I don't think so. I look insane when I take pictures. I look crazy and I'm super, yeah.
You're an artist. Renzi asks, your photos are mostly black and white. Why is that? And if you could only choose one, which one would you choose, color or black and white? And I think you used to, well, your previous series, they're in color, aren't they? So what
Yeah.
made you change?
Yeah, I used to work in color. I used to shoot large format, color film, natural light, outdoors. I mean, the exact opposite of what I do now. Um, I mean, I think you have to use the tools that the content calls for, right? I mean, I think black and white for these images, black and white, and the flash, because like obviously a big part of the work. I think what it helps defamiliarize, right? Things just look so much more different than the real world. It doesn't look like some kind of document of real life. And I think it also helps unite them, right? It brings them together as part of this sort of like semi-fictional universe. I mean, what I think I'm doing is like I'm going out into the world, I'm taking these moments and I'm reassembling them into sort of this fiction, right? Like the way a writer might go out, observe things, and then use those observations to like construct, sort of a different new, a world like within the, the real world. But I mean, so I love both. I just think you have to do what the work calls for. Although certainly the more I do in black and white, the more I want to switch to color, because it's just like I always want to do whatever I'm not doing.
We'll just keep doing that until the end,
Yeah.
black and white and color. Um, I even like when you're putting your sides together, for example, you have this mixture of like what you've just been saying about like constructing a new place, like that doesn't actually exist. Like, like that the pace, we're seeing pictures of the young girls and boys, but then also a Bible on a chair, or then a picture of the set of the not set, but the place you're photographing in. Like, how much do you think about that? Is that because Joel Meyerowitz, we mentioned, like he talks about how the sequence and how important that is in his work.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the sequence is crucial, and it's, I forget who said it, but it's like, a photograph is only as good as the one before it and the one after it, and it's like it completely changes. I mean, like editing in a film. I mean, it just completely changes the meaning. So it's crucial, and I think you can also ask for help. It's like if I was working on a show with you, Jess, I'd like want you to like respond or you have your ideas, or if a publisher, I want to hear what they see. Um, so I think it depends, right? It depends on the format also, the size, the scale, if you're doing an exhibition. But no, absolutely. The sequence is absolutely crucial. I mean, I'm also really interested in like just like the space, what I call like the space between photographs, right? It's like you see one thing and you see another. Hopefully that changes what you think about the other one. You know what I mean? Hopefully there's like a sort of back and forth where it changes your understanding of the previous image in some way.
Be a title of a book, Space Between Photographs. That sounds really nice. Um, Someone asks, your light anonymous asks, your lighting is beautiful, dramatic yet subtle. I'm wondering what lights you use and how you position them.
Yeah, so it depends. I mean, when I'm working in really big spaces, I often use like large Photo strobes, just because I need more light, more power. When I'm in smaller spaces, I can use much smaller kind of like speed lights. But one thing that's really important is that they're battery powered or charged, so I can move them anywhere, right? So I have worked sometimes with things that are plugged in. It becomes much, much more challenging. Because I'm also like invading these spaces, right? These are spaces where people are doing things, right? They're rehearsing, they're practicing. So, I mean, I'm there, I'm like setting off these strobes in their faces, but it's like it's important to like not interfere with what they're doing and trying to accomplish. So it's sort of there's practical and logistic and then aesthetic concerns as well. But I like using the lights kind of incorrectly or like in a way that's like unusual or strange. You could probably tell like I love backlighting things. I love blowing things out. I love casting things into shadows. I mean, it's not my lighting technique is like not super pro. Like it's not what you would do if you really knew anything about lighting, probably. Um, I'm interested in kind of doing it wrong a little bit.
Would that be advice you give to some of the maybe photographers in the audience? Like, yeah, try and break the rules a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it's good. It's like good to learn the rules. I mean, I think it really is good to understand the rules, but absolutely breaking the rules or just using a tool in a way that's not obvious or that most people don't use it, right? Same with cameras too. It's like taking something that's a traditional, I think of Chris Killup, who we discussed,
Mm.
like my all-time favorite photographers, shooting at punk clubs in, is that North England? Where was he shooting for the station?
He did some in the north of England.
And
Um,
but it's like he was using like a large format camera with this like huge battery pack, and he was like this 50-year-old man in a suit, in these punk clubs, and it's like he's using the wrong tool, right? It's like using a 35 of something portable would be much more obvious choice, but it's like that's what makes those photos so compelling, is that he's showing something in a totally different way than we're used to seeing it.
Oh, it was Gateshead, by the way, near Newcastle. You're
Oh,
right.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we really love his work. We talked about it before. Um, he and his he was working with someone called Marketa Luskachova, who I really admire, who's a Czech photographer, based in London now. And she would photograph their scenes of London and in Newcastle as well with her kid strapped to her. I think I told you about it before. And that kind of brings me on to this question Manu has asked about parenthood. And I know, Eli, if I may, you are a dad,
Yeah.
which is really exciting. And Manu asks, how has your work and this project affected or changed your own views on parenthood?
Yeah, I mean, I think about it a lot, and um, I don't know if it's the work or if things I'd be thinking about normally, but just like having a kid and thinking about the impact of the decisions I make, the things I say, the behaviors I model, like how a young person, like how my son might absorb those things or think about those things, or how those might affect his sense of self or identity. And it's it's nerve-wracking, it's like it's nerve-wracking to think that like um little things I might say, might impact him in certain ways. And I think about things that, my parents said or my mom said, and how those like, things that probably were just like offhand comments that then I like internalized and obsessed over. So, and so I wrote this opinion piece in the New York Times when I photographed at my old school, and it was all about that. It's like, how do we talk to our kids about, you know, the injustices, the historical inequality in the states, right? How do you teach the next generation about these things without sort of scarring them, Um, but I don't know. I mean, I think the silver lining is it's like probably also he just like doesn't listen to me. My son doesn't listen to me most of the time, so it's like hopefully he's just gonna do his thing, and what I say won't really have too much of an impact. But
Um, yeah, I can't imagine what it's like having a career like ours, like in the art world, and then also having a kid. And yeah, the weight of like our jobs are like to kind of interpret culture, and it must be a lot. But yeah, it sounds like you have a great time.
yeah, no, but it trips me out for sure.
Yeah. Um, we have 6 minutes left. So please, if you're thinking about a question, please put it in the chat. Um, oh, there was one more that I've not asked, and then maybe I'll say my final one if no one says anything else. But somebody asks, yeah, do you get everyone, even the kids' parents, to sign waivers to use their image? Like, what does that
Yeah. Yeah.
look?
So photographing young people is delicate, and it requires, a lot of just, being really careful and considerate. And so, yeah, so almost everyone has signed a waiver. Certain organizations like Cotillion, it's like you have to sign a photo waiver to be in it because they take photos that they post on like social media or Instagram. So that really helps, where it's organizations where it's like they've already, um, consented to being photographed. Of course, being featured in a story, especially if it's going in the New York Times, is something different. And there are people who sometimes, ask like, "Oh, please don't use pictures of my children." So which, we try to. I mean, we always, respect. Um, and so yeah, so they're all releases or just permission from parents. Like when the story I did for the New York Times that I mentioned, when that ran, we called every parent whose kid was featured and asked for permission. So
And so yeah, really, it's good you do that work. I don't think
yeah,
all artists
yeah, I
do.
think it's important. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
I think about as an artist, it's like just what work do I want to put out into the world? You know what I mean? What kind of conversations do I want to be a part of? And obviously, the ethics of photography are so, it's so complex, and and I teach at the University of Texas, and I have my students, read, articles and discuss questions, ethical considerations, and um, making sure it's like I'm on hopefully on the right side of that.
And on that, my final thought is just what's next in your projects, and yeah, is this a theme and topic you're going to continue to explore?
Yeah, I think I'm really interested. So in Texas, we have mega churches. I don't know if you guys know about mega churches. They're just like large scale congregations of people over like 2,000 or 1,500 or something like that. They're just like these really, really large scale churches, and they're super theatrical. Like they're like have like I mean extremely high budget performances and plays and choirs and youth groups, and so I think I'm really interested in that, and I'm trying to find ways to photograph that. And I think it's both connected to my work. I think like some of the imagery is similar, but it's just like this large scale. It's this huge scale. So I'm really hoping to um, try to photograph some mega churches.
Sounds fantastic. Love it's very camp. Can you say that? Well,
Yeah.
the pageantry of it, I think, is
Oh yeah. It's
yeah,
you have no idea. You have no, it's crazy. I mean, they have like budgets of like tens of thousands of dollars for these performances. And it's really amazing.
that is amazing. Yeah, there's not an equivalent here in the UK, I don't think. So we'll have to be on the lookout for your new book.
Thank you,
Um,
Jen.
right. I think, yeah, sorry to cut 2 minutes short, but if there's no more questions, and yeah, you've done such a great job, Eli, of talking to us about your practice. So massive thank you. I think we can maybe wrap up, unless you want to say anything else.
I was gonna say thank you, Jess. Thank you, Michael and Josie, and thank you to everyone who asked a question and attended. It was really nice to be here.
Yeah, nice to come together online. So yeah, I'll wrap up now. So thank you very much, everyone. And yeah, go see Belfast Photo Festival if you've not been there already.